Thank you for joining us for Dear Black Girl, Season 3, Episode 2. Today's topic is, what are you afraid of? A recent study revealed that Black youth, especially Black girls, are experiencing mental health issues at an increasingly alarming rate than other demographics. At Dear Black Girl, my dream team leaders and I believed in keeping it real about our wins, like we shared last week. But we also keep it real about our concerns. Our founder, Coco, has taught us that vulnerability is strength and never weakness. So we are committed to sharing our experiences, even if it makes us uncomfortable. To share more about this topic, please welcome our founder, Cordelia A. Banney.
Thank you for that. Welcome, Peyton. Excellent job. Welcome to the show, friends. Today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart. The Maasai tribe of South Africa have a greeting that they greet one another with when they meet each other, and they say Kaserian Ingera. And Kaserian Ingera means how are the children? Because the Maasai are wise enough to know that the greatest test of a community's strength can be measured by the well-being of their children. According to the CDC, during the pandemic, depression and anxiety obviously took a harsh toll on everyone, but it took a really harsh toll among young people, specifically young people of color. Today, we're chatting with two mental health advocates who have dedicated their time to unearthing the pain that young people carry. And we hope you'll gather your children, especially your girls, together for this chat. Please share this chat because we are going to be giving tools and tips for parents and educators and viewers who have children around them so that you can begin to identify some of these mental health issues in young people. But also, you never know who in your community just needs to hear something encouraging, something that makes them feel like they are less alone. Please consider donating to Dear Black Girl. Your donations allow conversations like today's conversation to happen, and we want to serve as many girls for as long as possible. So if you're willing to join hands with us today, please visit dearblackgirl.us and make a donation to sponsor a girl. Donations this year will also be going towards the Dear Black Girl Scholarship. One of our dream team leaders will be winning a $500 scholarship. And our scholarship is not based on grades, which are important. It's not based on anything scholastic, which is all important. But this year we're giving our scholarship to the girl with the greatest character, the girl who is kind, the girl who is generous, the girl who sees other people, sees beyond herself, and serves other people. And so we want you to be a part of that. Join us and please participate in that sponsorship. Well, to kick off today's show, I'm going to bring up Audrey and Carlene. This is Carlene's first interview, so please root for her in the chat. You guys send special comments and kindness to her so that she feels encouraged. They're going to come up and they're going to introduce our very first guest. Have a wonderful week. Happy Sunday.
Thank you, Coco. Today's topic is very important for families to have. It could save a life. To guide us through some thoughts on self-care, please welcome Miss Kyra Pinkney, the founder and executive director of Sisters in Self-Care.
As a child, Miss Kyra faced many hardships and abuse. Her home life was not idle. As an adult who was doing the work for her own healing, Miss Kyra decided to pay it forward to young girls.
Miss Kyra's main goal in all of this is to change someone's life for the better, help them see their value, be courageous in breaking generational curses and fighting the stigma of mental health.
Welcome to the show, Miss Kyra. Can you share a bit about your own mental wellness journey and how you arrived at Sisters in Self-Care?
Sure. So I basically grew up in a home that was less than ideal, like you said. And basically what happened from there was I was very broken, and I was on a long journey of being, trying to build myself up. And from there, once I started getting to a certain space of healing, once I started going to therapy, I really started taking care of me, practicing self-care, investing in myself. Then that's when I started to heal. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing the work. I'm going to really push forward. I'm going to really push. And it's hard work. It's hard work, but it's worth it in the end. And so what I did was I started seeing myself growing. I started seeing that I had a story. I started seeing that I was brave, that I had very good qualities. I started seeing all of these things in me. And people would tell me, you have a story, you should share it. And so from there, that's when I started sharing my story as far as like public speaking. And then that's when I started my business, Sisters in Self-Care. And my mom actually helped me with the name Sisters in Self-Care because of, our sisters, our sisterhood with the women, our sisterhood with the children, teenagers, we're a sisterhood, it's a community. And self-care is a really big part of it because it reaches out to so many different levels of it. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to really encompass what that community feeling feels like, to really reach out and help each person. And it encompasses so much. So I wanted to put all of that I could within that. So Sisters in Self-Care was born from that. That's my LLC, Sisters in Self-Care.
Amazing. Miss Kyra, why is it important for women and girls, especially women and girls of color, to practice self-care?
It's so important. It's so important because of basically history. You look at the things around you. You look at how we're portrayed on TV, how we're portrayed in media. It's not always the best light. We're always sacrificing. There's always a certain stereotype is less than favorable, and we always have to be strong. Always have to sacrifice ourselves. When, as brown girls and as Black girls, we should be vulnerable. We should be able to be vulnerable. We should be able to be soft. We should be able to be, happy and smiling and, not always so tough, but, a good balance, having that vulnerability. And so basically, that's why it's so important to practice self-care, because society has failed us and we need to be our own advocate for self-care. We need to speak up for ourselves and be like, okay, I need this. I need that. Don't be afraid to use your voice. I want this, I want that. Can you help me? Can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? It's so important. It's so important. I can't stress it enough.
Amazing. Is there a difference between self-care and self-indulgence? Can we practice both, and which one actually refills us?
Right. Okay. So self-care can be self-indulgence at times, and it serves its purpose. It serves its purpose at that time, but it can easily lead to self-absorption and feeling like, I'm like better than everyone. I'm this, I'm that, it serves its purpose. It serves its purpose, but sometimes it doesn't get to the root of the problem. It doesn't get to the root of the problem. It doesn't get to, the very core of what you're going through as a person. So when you're practicing self-care, you have to be intentional. You have to be purposeful. You have to be aware of what you're doing. There's so many things that you have to go through as a person, and trial and error. But self-care, we practice the one that actually refuses, which is self-care, and it needs to be consistent. It needs to be an everyday thing. Self-care isn't something that is, it's a special occasion, let me practice self-care. Oh, it's this, let me practice self-care. But it's something that should be practiced every day. And it's something that it involves so many different aspects, like reading or, walking, or not even physical, but sometimes journaling, getting your thoughts out, talking to your parents, talking to your mom, talking to your dad. If you have a therapist, talking to your therapist, making sure you're eating, making sure you're going to sleep at a good time, making sure that when you study, you take breaks because you don't want to get overwhelmed, you don't want to get stressed. So that's how you practice the one that actually refuels you.
Great answer. What advice do you have for a young lady who is saddled with overwhelming depression or anxiety?
My favorite quote is by an author. His name is Matt Haig, and he says that while it rains, you are not the rain. And when it rains, it doesn't rain forever. So what that means is that when it's raining, you feel the rain, you experience the rain, but you're not the rain. So you have depression, You feel depression, but you are not depression. You have anxiety, you feel anxiety, but you are not anxiety. You might be sad, you might experience really deep sadness, and you might cry, but you don't have to be, you don't embody those things. So that's what that means when it talks about, what am I trying to say? When it talks about overwhelming feelings of sadness, and just knowing that you are human. You have to remember that you are human. So you're going to feel. Don't run away from your feelings. Feel it, sit with your feelings, talk it out, journal it out, dance it out. If you got to swing a pillow or something, when you're room by yourself, you got to scream into your pillow, do that. But it's just knowing that it's not forever. It's just knowing that it's not forever, and that those feelings pass, and that even if sometimes all you can do is just exist, that's enough. That is enough. That is enough. If all you can do is just wake up, eat some food, go back to sleep, do something like that, that's enough, because it takes so much to fight through those feelings. So definitely it's enough. Just know that you are enough and you're doing your best. Even though it doesn't feel like it, you are.
What an amazing quote. How can girls who have very little resources care for themselves, especially when they don't have much individual time?
Okay, so one of the things that you can do is, you said very little resources, especially if they don't have a lot of privacy or individual time. I know that personally for me, I get my personal time, when I'm taking a bath. That's, a lot of us, privacy, we're going to the bath, we're taking a bath. That's when we have our privacy. So that's a great time. If you don't have a lot of time to yourself, that's a great time to get you a little bubble bath, to get a little book, to maybe put your phone on and listen to like some little music or whatever, and just wind down and just, take it down a notch. Think about all the things that happened to you throughout the day, all the good memories, all the good things. It's just really important to do that. And another thing is, sometimes even if we don't have individual time, sometimes we can create a tradition, or sometimes we can create things with our family. Sometimes those are things that we can do. Like, we can be the one to say, hey, even though I don't have individual time, let's create something as a family. Let's go for a family walk. Let's go for a walk every weekend. Let's bake cookies every weekend. Let's go to the movies. And that way, if you don't have individual time, your family can start saying, okay, she doesn't have individual time, but what can I do for her? What can we do for her as a family? How can we, even though she is really busy, really hectic, and there's so many of us here, how can we get her to have that time? So yeah.
Thank you for being with us today, Miss Kyra. How can our viewing audience stay connected with you?
So what the viewers can do is, the viewers can stay connected with me through Instagram, which is Sisters and Self-Care, at Sisters and Self-Care. And also my email is sistersandselfcare@gmail.com. And just follow me there. I'm always willing to help. I'm always willing to reach out. It's so important. Self-care is so important. It encompasses so many different things. It means so much. It's just so important. So that's why I'm just like, reach out. Just reach out if you can. If you know of anybody that's going through something, reach out. If you know of anybody that needs help with finding resources, because I'm a member of the National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is NAMI. I meant to say earlier that NAMI has great resources as well. And I can definitely direct people to NAMI and get them to find things that go on in their state, so that they can get resources, support groups for kids and everything, So don't be afraid to reach out. I'm definitely a resource. Mm-hmm.
What a great start to our self-care conversation. Our next segment will be full of wisdom, but also practical tips on how to continue self-care practices after this show. To lead that segment, please welcome Margell and Morgan.
Thanks, Audrey. Great job on the interview, ladies. Next, I'm happy to introduce the founder and executive director of Black Girls Smile, Miss Lauren Carson.
Welcome to the show, Miss Lauren. Please share a bit about Black Girls Smile and the life journey that led you to create it.
Awesome. Well, happy to be with you guys today. Thank you so much for having me. So Black Girl Smile was started in 2012 with the mission to empower young Black girls' mental health and well-being. What really drew me to starting the organization is I am a Black woman now, formerly a Black girl that struggled with depression, anxiety, and suicide attempts. And I saw, through my experience, but also through various focus groups, trying to volunteer in New York City, that there were very few organizations focused on the mental health and well-being of young Black women. So that's the gap that we look to fill with Black Girl Smile, is really focusing in and honing in on Black girls' mental health and providing programming, resources, increasing access to working with therapists and providers to ensure that Black girls are mentally well.
Thank you, Ms. Kyra. What exactly is mental health, and why do Black girls need to have spaces to discuss it?
Yeah, so mental health is a part of our overall well-being. We have physical health, we have spiritual health, we have emotional health, and mental health kind of encompasses and is kind of commingled or kind of tangled in that. And really what it comes down to is it's how you think, you act, and you feel. So if you're not feeling well mentally, you're not acting like yourself. You're not feeling your best. You're not reacting to situations in the best ways possible. So mental health is really at the crux of how we show up for others, but also how we show up for ourselves.
I love how you said that we have to show up for ourselves. A lot of people don't understand that we can also take care of ourselves while also taking care of other people. Now, the next question for you is that Facebook, a recent study has showed that Facebook and Instagram are toxic for girls, particularly girls of color. So though these apps know about this, they do nothing to resolve it. How do girls maintain access to these fun apps yet not lose themselves?
Yeah, and that's a challenge. What's so unique about social media is young people like yourselves know way more about social media than we do as an adult. And that's a unique situation. Like, think of how many things in the world that you guys know the ins and outs, and we're trying to catch up. So it's very normal for adults, for parents, caregivers to say, okay, just don't use it. Like, we don't know how it works, just don't use it. But that's not honestly not practical. So what we really need to do is work with our young girls and educate them on how to use social media in positive and healthy ways. Emphasizing things like social media is not reality. Finding opportunities to have conversations with our young girls about how, different perceptions or representations of our bodies, things like cyberbullying, how those make us feel, and really providing context, because this is something that, again, we're learning, but there's ways for us to help young girls like yourselves engage with social media in positive and healthy ways without just saying, okay, don't use it. A few things that I always advocate for is making sure that you take a step back. I know it can be really difficult to take a step back from social media, but if you find that it's extremely difficult, you may want to delete the app for a period of time. Also, on a lot of our phones, there is a functionality where you can set up where it alerts you if you've been on it for, let's say, an hour, 2 hours. So it can kind of alert you to say, hey, maybe it's time to take a break from social media. Also, we have complete control over curating our timeline, even amongst these algorithms and everything like that. So I encourage young women, and I do this even myself, is take some time, just pick a day, pick a Sunday, where you go through and you look at all the accounts that you follow or that you interact with. And if they don't bring you joy, unfollow them. As simple as that, unfollow them. I know at times people kind of track who's following who, all of that stuff, but I guarantee you I've done that several times. I don't even know who I unfollowed, because those were accounts that, they didn't bring me joy. They weren't positive to my mental health and well-being, so I don't need to see them. So we're very much able to be in control of what we see there, but also, again, taking a break and really at its core, realizing that social media is not an accurate representation of anybody's life. What we share on social media is we very much pick and choose what we share on social media. Everyone else does the same. So we have to make sure we have kind of context and reminders for ourselves of what social media is and how it can serve in positive and healthy ways in our lives.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And I feel that, like, most young girls, even I'm not like saying like not me, but also me, we'd be like looking through posts and you'll become like envious, but like in the end you have to know that like not all of is real, and you have your own life to live, so just live it to the fullest. And my next question for you is, how can parents identify mental health issues in their young girls?
Yeah. One point I want to make, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's something, candidly, that you're probably we, especially as women, we struggle with that for our whole lives, of kind of that comparison. We're brought up to kind of compare our bodies, compare our lives to others. That's kind of a human experience. So if you ever find that you are jealous or envious of someone, those are normal emotions to have. Too often we kind of chastise ourselves, but we also chastise others, of like, how can you be envious of a friend? How can you be jealous of a friend? Those are normal emotions. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to act on those emotions, but those are normal emotions. So I really encourage you and anyone else, if you have these uncomfortable feelings, sit with them for a moment. That's what it means to be human, is to have these uncomfortable feelings, have negative feelings at times, but not to shy away from them. But again, you don't always have to act on them, but they're very much human experiences. To your other question, how do caregivers, parents really identify mental health issues in young people? I have to admit, this is difficult. Young people are going through a lot of changes, socially, emotionally, physically, that at times we as adults can look at a young person and say, oh, well, that's just teenage angst, or they're just, that's just how teenagers are. But when we see a young person, so a few signs that you can look for. If you see a young person starting to withdraw from family and spending more time with friends, that may be normal. But if you see a young person withdrawing from everyone completely, so not spending time with friends, not spending time with their cousins, or, let's say their youth group, or a community group that they hang out with, they're withdrawing from everyone, that's going to be one warning sign. If you see a young person that is changing their activities that they like, that's perfectly normal. I have a 2-year-old. The sports, the activities that he plays are going to be ones I put him in. But once he gets older, he has the autonomy to make those decisions about what he likes. So it's fine for him to replace those activities. But if you find that a young person is completely stepping away from all activities that they previously liked and not replacing them with others, that's another potential warning sign or symptom. Also, if you see any signs of suicidal behaviors or actions, language, those are very serious warning signs. I know, especially in the African American community, and many times we're like, you need to just go pray about it. My child would never do that. No, we need to take any suicidal speech, if you find a poem, anything, if you find a drawing, we need to take all of those things very serious. So I go back to, it can be very difficult to discern the difference between normal adolescent changes and, you know, changes in our relationship as parents or as caregivers with our young people. But we want to really look out for any warning signs or symptoms that they are struggling with any mental health issue. And those are very common warning signs. Are there changes in their hygiene? Are they not taking care of themselves? Are you sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, not eating enough, eating too much? If you see big outbursts, not having the ability to regulate emotions, those are things that you can definitely look out for in a young person that may be experiencing mental health issue.
I love how you talk so much about emotion because it really ties into my next question for you, really. So I want to ask you how my peers and I can share our feelings with one another and with adults, especially if we're not sure of our feelings ourselves or we feel like we don't have the language to express what we are experiencing.
Yeah, great question. I would say journaling is one of the best activities that you can do to express your emotions. Also to kind of get out your feelings. At times we will have revelations ourselves, like we're like, oh, I didn't even know I was really feeling that. Or, oh, I didn't know I was really stuck on that or something like that. So I would definitely encourage journaling. One of the best phrases that I've picked up over the last few years is asking someone if they have the space to sit down and talk to you about how you're feeling. Because, and I say that because it just candidly right now, a lot of us are going through various things. So we want to make sure when we engage in a conversation with our parent, our caregiver, our aunt, our uncle, godparent, or even our peers, that they are in the right headspace to be active and participating in a conversation. So asking, hey, Lauren, I want to sit down and talk to you about some of the things that I've been experiencing. Do you have the space for us to have that conversation? And they may say, oh, I would love to have this conversation, but I'm going to have to get back to you tomorrow. Perfectly fine. And again, it's perfectly fine for you to feel like, whew, I asked and I'm a little disappointed it wasn't able to happen now, but being really understanding, and finding those pockets to have those conversations. But I also encourage you, if you encounter peers, parents, caregivers who are not understanding, empathetic, or judgmental to the things that you are experiencing with your mental health, it is perfectly fine for you to say, thank you for your thoughts, thank you for your feelings, but you can stop the conversation. And I say that because not everyone is comfortable talking about feelings, emotions, or mental health. This is kind of relatively new, and I hope that we continue in this trajectory where there are young people like yourselves that are having conversations with your peers, with your family members, with those that you care about what you're experiencing. But I also want to make sure that when you do so, that you are in a non-judgmental, compassionate, and empathetic experience, because that's when you can be heard. That's when you can feel supported. And at times, just being candid, you have to go it alone. And that's where we're leaning into journaling. We're making sure that we're tapping in and we're checking in on our emotions and our feelings, even if we're not able to count on others.
Yes, great answer. And I agree with the part where you say journaling, because I read sometimes and I also draw, and it helps me with my mental health. And the part where you say we must talk about our feelings, I talk about my feelings with my parents, and in the end they listened to me, they supported me, and it made me feel better. So my next question for you is, can you lead us in a self-care practice that we can take with us after the show?
Yes. I'm super excited to show you guys a grounding technique. So grounding exercises are great because you can tap into them anytime. When you feel yourself being, stressed, if you feel yourself being anxious, if you feel yourself being triggered, leaning into grounding exercises, it can bring you back into the moment. making sure that you're present, but it also, it releases oxygen to your brain so you can think better. You can react better to situations that can be stressful. So I'm going to run you guys through a quick grounding exercise. So first, if you can close your eyes for a second and take a deep breath, and then open your eyes. So the first step is you're going to think of 5 things that you can see in the room. Any 5 things. Next, you're going to think of 4 things that you can touch and feel. Next is 3 things that you can hear. Then 2 things that you can smell. And the last one, I've modified it a little bit, is 1 thing that is amazing about you. And that's really tapping into your senses. It should make you feel grounded. It should make you feel like you were in the present. When I do this, I feel like, whew, okay, I feel better. I can take on anything that comes my way. So just a reminder on that. That's 5 things that you can.
Miss Lauren, I think you are frozen.
Yeah, I think there might be some technical difficulties with Miss Lauren.
But I do want to say that I have seen that grounding technique before with actually in school. My teachers love using like mindful things like that, and I really appreciate stuff like that. And I wanted to thank Miss Lauren about sharing her wisdom and speaking with us today. And I would like to know, Miss Lauren, how our viewers can stay in contact with you.
Yeah, certainly. So you can check out our website at blackgirlsmile.org. And that's plural, blackgirlsmile.org. You can reach out to me directly if you ever have questions, if you need assistance with anything. My email is lcarson@blackgirlsmile.org. And then we're also on social media at blackgirlsmile, mostly on IG. But would love to connect with you guys, to stay in contact. And if there's any ways that I can help support you, please let me know.
Okay, well, friends, we've come to the end of today's show. To all of you beautiful Black and brown girls watching us today, we want you to know you're not alone. Even though you feel like you are not. Your life is worth living, and we hope you choose life over and over again. During the best times of your life and even in the worst times, please remember that things only get better if you keep living. If you need someone to talk to, please contact us at dearblackgirl.us or call 1-800-662-HELP to reach the National Mental Health Hotline.
Our life is worth living. Thank you so much for the great information, Margot. Now we're going to turn it over to Riel to close out this week's show.
Thanks, Morgan. Anyways, it has been such a great show today. To reframe a quote by Frederick Douglass, it is easier to build strong girls than to repair broken women. Please join us again next week when we will continue this conversation in our bullying segment. Have a wonderful week, everyone. See you next week. Bye!